Hey everyone, Jeff here, also known as the Revit Kid. Welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Back to a little 7:30 Eastern time. I know I've been skipping around different times, so I apologize to those in Europe. I know you guys already emailed me. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry. But sometimes I like to do this show at night. It started at night as a happy hour, and part of the reason why it's nice to do it at night is because when it's not in the middle of the workday, I can have a cocktail. So hopefully you guys are too. BIM After Dark Live is a weekly live show here on YouTube where we talk about Revit, BIM, and all things related. This is actually episode 41. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff today. We're going to talk about Assemble systems. And some of you may have heard of Assemble. Some of you may use it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're interested in it. Maybe you've never heard of it before. Assemble systems was purchased by Autodesk 2 years ago, but I was using it long before. So I've got some interesting experiences to share with you. But it is one of those programs where I just feel like you should know about it. I feel like anyone who sees it will probably find some uses for it. And so I'm going to jump into the content soon, but before we do, I want to remind everyone that this is live. So feel free to chat, ask questions, let me know where you're joining from. It's always fun to see, and have a good time. I have prepared content to try and move things along, but I really encourage the discourse and chatting about it. I want your questions. I want to pique your interest and see what you guys are interested in. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining. This is pretty cool. If you enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got, and hit the notification bell too, because then you'll know when I go live. But we've got 37,000 subscribers, which is pretty sweet. I think when I started this show back when the pandemic first started, now almost a year ago, 41 episodes ago, I should say. I think we were under 20,000 subscribers, maybe like 19. So pretty cool. Thank you for subscribing. If you're returning, thank you for joining me every week. And hopefully this show has given you value and got you through this crazy year that we've been having. John Gray, what's up? Welcome. John's been joining us for a while too. And before I jump into the content, I do want to thank our sponsor. Anyone who has been following along knows that back towards the end of last year, this YouTube stream is sponsored by BIMbox. So let me quickly roll the clip so you guys can see some really cool fancy stuff. I'll tell you about BIMbox, and then we'll jump into the content for today. Well, there you have it, BIMbox. For those of you that don't know what BIMbox is, they are a computer manufacturer, and guess what? They make boxes for BIM. No, they create laptops and desktops that have been optimized, designed, and developed specifically for running Revit. So there are 2 desktops in their line that you should be interested in. One is the Striker, which has been designed for Revit and optimized for Revit. The other one is the Osprey, which has been designed and optimized for laser scanning. I've been using BIM boxes now for, I don't even know, 7, 8, 9 months. I don't even know what it is now. And in non-technical terms, these things are beasts. In technical terms, they've got everything you can possibly think of that you would want in a Revit laptop. So finally, the answer to the question, what computer should I use for Revit, is here, and it is BIMbox. So what I wanted to let you know about, actually, look at, there's one right there. That is the Striker. The thing is a monster. If you're interested in getting a new laptop or desktop, and especially one designed and optimized for Revit, then head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com, or you can email sales@bimboxusa.com. Let them know that Jeff sent you, that you saw it here. Buck and his crew will hook you up. They've got a 3-year warranty with every machine. They deliver a desktop or laptop in 10 to 14 days. I don't know about you guys, but I've spent 2 to 3 months waiting for laptops in the past, which is awesome. And right now they've also got a 3000 NVIDIA 3000 cards in stock, which for anyone who doesn't know anything about the hardware side of what's going on, those graphics cards are extremely difficult to get. So reach out to them. BIMbox, thank you for sponsoring. If you're in the market for a new desktop or laptop, make sure you check them out. Awesome. So now we've got some folks Omaha, Nebraska. What's up? How's it going, everyone? So we're going to talk about assemble systems, and I do want to. I've mentioned assemble a couple times here on the show. Not really, didn't really get into too much detail, and I've always wanted to sort of get into more, and some of you have actually asked to dig into it more. This was also sort of not forced, the nudge by Amy, who's a member of the BIM After Dark community. If you're interested in that, you can check out community.bimafterdark.com. It's a learning platform with a bunch of full-length courses, as well as a social media type of feed where you can ask questions to our 140 plus members, including myself, with office hours and all kinds of cool stuff. So check that out at community.bimafterdark.com. But anyways, Amy wanted to know more about it, so she kind of nudged me in the direction, and I thought maybe it was time to just do it. Let's do an episode on assemble. Oh, Vancouver, what's up, man? I love Vancouver. Definitely one of my favorite places to visit in Canada. I've only visited Canada 3 times, so I'm sure there's other places I'm not thinking about. So what I decided to do was, I've got Assemble open, I've got Revit open, I've got all kinds of stuff that I can dig into, responding to questions and so on. But what I did is I took two presentations actually. I did a couple different presentations on Assemble over the last 2 or 3 years, and I kind of mashed them together. And I'm going to use those as sort of a guide to structure our conversation. But again, this is live, so I really do want you to, and I encourage you to ask questions along the way. I'll be checking out the chat, and I'll be responding as I go through. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to dive into the prepared type of content and flip around, and then we'll just, who knows where it'll go from there. So with all that being said, I'm going to open the little slide deck here and just jump into it. This is actually, it's kind of funny. This was a presentation, and I apologize if anything happens, because I don't know about you guys, but PowerPoint is great, but it also stinks at the same time. So if there's any issues with resolution and weird stuff going on, I want to apologize ahead of time. But I love and hate PowerPoint so much. Okay. so I kept, sorry, I'm just making sure that this stuff is open here. So I actually kept, oh, see that? There goes the resolution thing. Let me just change that real quick, because that's going to keep popping up on you. So what I did is I kept some of the slides because I thought some of them were kind of funny. I think I originally gave this presentation in 2018, maybe? Something like that. Maybe 2018. All right, so I'm just going to do use current resolution, and then we'll pop into it. There we go. And it popped into the wrong slide. Perfect. You can prepare all you want, guys, but for live shows, stuff happens. Okay, and I got to make sure YouTube's open so I can see you guys and what questions you have. Awesome. Here we go. Okay, so this was loosely titled BIM for Everyone when I presented it at, this was, I think, Built NA at the time, but I presented a couple different things, and so I kind of mashed them together. And what I want to do is you know, Assemble Systems originally was sort of created and designed as a quantity takeoff tool. And what I really want you to take away from this is not only that it's very good at being a quantity takeoff tool, but also that the biggest thing that I've discovered using Assemble for over 4 years now is that it allows everyone, it literally gives anyone in your company access to the power of BIM that we all know because we're intimately involved with our models. Okay, so it is so silly, stupid, simple to use. It's web-based, and it doesn't require heavy hardware, but it gives you access to all of the information that we know exists and lives in our model. So super, super awesome. I had a lovely video of Jacob. This is so funny because I don't even know how old he was here, maybe 9 months old or something like that. And now he's 2 and some change. But awesome video here of him smashing a keyboard, being all frustrated with computers. And there we go. Yeah. So I wanted to keep that in there. Why not? So this is kind of how I wanted to structure our discussion today and our demonstration today, is around sort of giving you an overview of what Assemble is, and then running down sort of the 3 main pieces that we kind of that I pull out of Assemble, and that's cost, models, and data, and keeping it around this sort of global idea of visualizing it, because obviously everything we do is visual, it's model based, and we can utilize it. in that sense. So a little overview of Assemble. Let's just roll through that real quick. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's web-based. I'm going to jump into it live in a little bit, but essentially, it's a web-based platform where you can upload your models, kind of like BIM 360 Glue or any of the other programs where you have the ability to view models. But as you can see, it's pretty. It's not too scary. It's not as intimidating. There's an inventory on your left, which essentially, for those of you who probably are Revit users, is essentially a schedule. But it's a schedule that is pretty adaptable and pretty easy to use, even to non-Revit users, because it's all kind of there. You don't have to tell it what categories you want to use. They're there, and you can modify it however you need. You'll notice quantities, counts, all kinds of good stuff is coming out of that. There's a 3D viewer on the right-hand side. And the other thing you'll notice is that this is an 11-story building, and this can be opened on pretty much any machine in our office, which was key because estimators usually don't have BIM/VDC the VDC laptops. The other thing that you should know is that we have access to every property that exists inside of your model. So once you upload these bad boys, as you can see, instance and types and every single parameter that exists for that element. Not only that, but you also have a top piece, which is called Assemble Properties. And this, to me, is one of the areas where Assemble is unique as far as web-based platforms or even just the viewers are concerned in the model world. I don't know what they do in the back end, but essentially what you can do is you can create unlimited amount of your own Assemble properties in this server-based, this online-based server, whatever they have, and you can apply those properties to elements. So not a lot of software allow you to add new properties in the environment, in their environment, and then assign them to the model elements. The really cool thing too is if you really want to start messing with stuff, you can also sync those properties into your models. They're called Assemble Properties, and they will pull down. But that's really cool, and that's really powerful when you think about it. If you have a user, even if they're not an estimator, if they're even a PM at an architecture firm, right? They can select a bunch of elements and use their own parameter called, I don't know, check this or notes from Jim, and they can type in notes, and those are just parameters that are assigned to those elements now. Then you could filter by them, you could color by them, and it becomes this whole new way to interact with the model database. And so that to me is always really cool, and you'll see that unlocks a whole bunch of things that we use it for every day at Turner. Beth, welcome. Beth joined us. Beth is a regular viewer of the show here. Beth said this is perfect timing because she's starting a big building project, 13 buildings, and need to do some quantity takeoff. Well, if you plan on doing model-based quantity takeoff, then heck yes, Assemble will help. Just a real quick overview of how you get your models into it. Pretty simple. All you do is upload models. And so here's your model here in Revit. You click publish and you bump them up to your server. So there's an add-in, and that's literally how easy it is. So makes it really simple. There's a plugin for Revit, AutoCAD, Navisworks, and I think that's it right now. And you can upload those models directly to it. We have had success. Excuse me. We have had success uploading different file types using either CAD or Revit. And what I mean by that is if we have an IFC, for example, even if it came from Tekla or some other program, they may not have a plugin for Tekla or whatever program it is. But we were able to bring them into Revit and then publish them, or Navis, and then publish them to our server and be able to access the data. Anthony already asked a question. What's up, Anthony? Where can we get the software? How much does it cost? Well, as I mentioned, Autodesk owns it now, so I'm assuming you can go to any of your resellers or Autodesk directly. As far as the cost, it really depends on a lot of different things. We use the the personal server that I'm working on is our regional server at Turner Construction. So we're paying a completely different rate for a region across 2 business units with a whole bunch of people. There's per projects. I'm not really sure. So you have to ask your Autodesk reseller or Autodesk themselves. Shared parameters and nested parameters. Yes. Any parameters will go up there. I believe they're going to be under instance or type because if they're applied to an element, then they're going to be there, right? But they'll work. And Evelix said these live streams are amazing. Thank you. Hey, no problem. Of course. All right. So as I mentioned, you upload. Boom. You just click it up there. Just an example of the Navisworks uploader. What's pretty cool about Navisworks is we have the ability to bring in, obviously, files from all over the place and upload them. I will say that not every single file works. If there's a file that was made with some weird plugin and it's just proxy data, then you're going to run into it. But we have had a lot of success using Navisworks to upload different data. All right, so let's talk about estimating real quick. We'll get that out of the way, and then we'll talk about all the other stuff that you could possibly do with it. Because at the heart of it, this is what this program was designed for, and this is what the program this is how I got into the program, was getting our estimators to use the models, and then obviously seeing all the great things that we could do with it. Anyone who has ever worked at a construction management firm, worked with a construction manager, or a GC, may be familiar with some of the processes that they use to do takeoff. And so this is a little story from when I started at Turner 6 plus years ago now, maybe 6. And I was asked to help on a takeoff. And I knew the project was in Revit, but my boss asked me to do it, and they basically gave me on-screen takeoff, the PDF. So the PDF is exported as a TIFF, brought into this program called on-screen takeoff, scaled. So you're scaling a rastered version of a vector file, and then you're either manually clicking, so the green boxes are actually polygons that are drawn, or you're clicking, if you want to count toilets, guess what? You just say, hey, when I click a red box, I want that to be a toilet, and I want it to be count. And so then you go through and you click. And I remember I was doing lighting takeoff or something like that. And I'm sitting here looking at the reflected ceiling plan of a PDF that was created in Revit. And I was manually clicking all of the can lights. And that was when I immediately told my boss, I said, hold on. We need to get the models from the architects, and we need to look into this stuff. Because I can tell you right now, if you called me and I made this model and you asked me how many P2 lights there were, I would right click and I would say select all, or I'd make a schedule and I'd use the model and I'd tell you there's 32 lights. So that's what's happening now. Anyone who's doing 2D takeoff is using a program like this, whether it's Bluebeam, whether it's on-screen, there's a whole bunch of them out there. So then, the idea was, okay, well, I know there's value in the models, and I know we can take off from them. But at the time, we had Revit or we had Navisworks. The quantification notebook, anyone who's ever used the quantification workbook knows that it is entirely useless. It does take off, but there's just something about it that I absolutely loathe. There's just something about it it's definitely not intuitive. And then there's creating schedules. The problem with these methods is they require someone like myself or most of you here on the call to get done. Okay, and what I mean by that is they require a tech savvy Revit user to get done. So what we're doing here is we're creating a schedule, we're taking it off, and then we're handing over an Excel sheet or some sort of form of this takeoff to an estimator to say, hey, there's 400 lights. That wasn't going to fly with me, okay? I want the estimator to be able to visually connect that data with the model. If they're looking at this thing and they're saying, why are you telling me 500 lights then, when I know that just based on square footage, there should be 200 lights or there should be 700 lights, right? They have no way of visually checking it other than coming back to me, opening the model and looking at it. So, we did this for a little bit, but then came Assemble. And what Assemble did, which, really just broke down the barrier for me and my estimating department that I was working with to get to this point, is it made this process of accessing the data and then connecting the data with the visual representation, which we all know as a model, it made it possible for literally anyone. So here's what a lighting takeoff would look like in Assemble. As you can see, here's the MEP model from the design team. It's got all the good MEP stuff in it. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a quick rule. I'm just using categories right now. And I say I want to show only light fixtures. And the other thing that's really cool is the categories are listed on the left. So even if you're not a Revit user, you can probably quickly figure out how am I going to find my lights if you just read through the categories. So there you go right there now, 2003 light fixtures. And then if you want to expand them, there's the light fixture types. And then on the right-hand side is the visual representation of that takeoff, okay? And you can click each one, you can dissect it, you can dig into it. So this is huge, right? This gave our users, our estimators, the power that we knew existed in Revit in literally 3 clicks on a web-based program that doesn't require a ridiculously cool computer. Looks like we have a couple questions here. DH Designs and Painting asked, how long have I used this program? I'm assuming you're talking about Assemble, and does it make the files bigger? I've used Assemble for over 4 years now, and it actually, they use some sort of proprietary, I tried asking them and they wouldn't give me a straight answer way back when, but they use some sort of proprietary back-end thing that exports it, and it actually makes files extremely light, really, really, really light, which is incredible. And we haven't, I have not run into a memory limit on even the estimators machines using Google Chrome, and they've only got maybe 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and they're able to open some pretty big models. So pretty awesome. Let's see. John Gray and Hassan are talking about rendering rendering engines. Definitely an interesting topic for me. I'm sure you guys, if anyone's been following me, you know that. Just check out my channel. Check out the blog at therevitkid.com, and we'll talk about it. Let's see. This is really cloud. Nice, cool. Yeah. So can the MEP team mark up or share comments that I can see? It depends on what you mean by comments. Sorry, here we go. Nope, don't want to subscribe. Sorry about that, guys. We'll talk a little bit about some of the sharing stuff and how that all goes into it in a little bit, Evelyn. So thanks for the question. Real quick, just to show some of the features and other things that it unlocks for estimators. As you can see, you can dig into models, but it does also give you the ability to even just measure within a model. So if there's something you want to double check the area takeoff or some length or something like that, you do have the ability to do simple measurements within it. So again, just unlocking the data and information that we know exists within Revit, and within models in general, and being able to give people who literally have never opened Revit before in their entire life the ability to do it. Huge, huge. The measure, here's just measure by face. We don't need to see that. All right, I'm going to show some more examples of the 2D sheet view, but this is pretty sweet too. So not only do you have the ability to see the models, but if you have a Revit model that has sheets in it, you also start to gain that same sort of parametric model, encompassing BIM stuff that we've dealt with, that we know is really cool. Is you can go on a floor plan, select a wall, and it selects in 3D, and vice versa. So this is super helpful because the way we train our estimators to use this software is because a lot of times an estimator who doesn't use Revit, for example, won't know necessarily what parameter to look for. If they're looking for wall types, they may not know that you're probably going to use a type mark or a mark value, right? They don't know that. So what we train them to do is find a known value in the sheet. So if you go for lighting takeoff as a perfect example, you go on the reflective ceiling plan, there's a P2 light fixture. You go there, you click it, and then you can filter through your Revit properties or the properties coming out of Revit and look for that value. Look for P2, and then you know what parameter to look for. It's a type mark, and now you can search and you can use that. And so really, really super cool and a really good way, again, to have non-Revit users accessing Revit data. So now, as I mentioned, visualizing models is a huge thing, right? That whole visual connection with the takeoff is massive. And so what you're seeing right now are pipes, right? And I apologize to any of the MEP engineers out there today if I offend you at all. But this is from my experience, and this is from an actual project. And I know this is not everyone, but this is just an example. So what you see here are pipes. There's lots of pipes, right? And the thing is, these pipes are all the same size, right? So if you click any one of these pipes, they show, I forgot what it was, 2 inches or something like that, right? But if you go to the plans that we have there, what you'll notice is that there's actually just about 3 to 4 sizes in this location based on these plans. 2 inch, 3 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, there's a 4 inch sanitary, etc. Right? The problem, right, with doing a takeoff, a model-based takeoff and not having the connection, and ideally this isn't happening, but sometimes this happens. These are annotated notes over a 3D model. Is that if I was to do this takeoff and hand over an Excel sheet to my estimator, it'll say, hey, we've got 2,000 linear feet of 2 inch pipe. But then you look at the plans and you're like, well, where's all the 3 and 4 inch pipe, right? And so that's where the visual connection is huge, right? Being able to select in your takeoff and see, wait a minute, something's fishy here. Like that is also powerful, right? Being able to tell why the data is not looking correct, right? So the other piece of visualizing a model, which this is less for non-Revit users and more for Revit users. Creative just said you're way too paranoid about offending MEP guys. I like to be an all-encompassing YouTube channel here, and now is not the time to put ourselves in silos like MEP, contractor, and architect. We're all BIM users. How about that? Good point, though. I usually don't mind offending people, but on this channel, I'm going to try not to offend anybody. So I apologize if I offended you. So the other really cool thing for Revit users is, and anyone who follows me on Twitter, simply at the Revit Kid, I mentioned this a little bit today at a Twitter conversation with Aaron Mahler, is conditioning/filtering models and how easy it is. So right now, if I asked you to color all of the interior wall types. So let's say I want to type 1A purple and 1B yellow and 1C or whatever. I wanted to see all of the interior wall types in this view. What would you have to do? Well, you'd have to create a filter, right? Or you select them, override, whatever. But we're going to use a filter as the example. So as you can see, here they are filtered. Some of them are colored. So what is that? What does it take to create that? Well, in the visibility graphics, when you go to your filters, you would need a filter for every single type, right? Because that's just the way Revit filters work. You can't just make a randomized filter for every type in it and it won't just show it. So when you're trying to condition or format or filter or look at a model a specific way, that's what you have to do, right? You have to make a filter for everything. You're doing fine. I'm just kidding. Brandon asked, I'm actually right now I'm just showing another way to color them. Sorry, I'm doing two things here. You could also select all instances and color by pattern, whatever. You get the idea. While it's doing that, Brandon Dorsey asked, how would you compare assembled versus Revisto for the examples you're sharing? I haven't used Revisto in a few years, so I can't really compare it too much. I'd be more than welcome to dig back into Revisto. I know they've done a whole bunch over the years, but I honestly have not used it in probably 3 years, so couldn't tell you how I would compare it. So what I did there is color by override, select, override, etc. And so just different ways that you could color. If you wanted to color a certain wall type blue, this is how you would do it. Well, Assemble has this wonderful thing called color by property. And this is probably one of my favorite things in Assemble that I wish somehow Revit had it built in to some extent. And so what I'm doing here is the same model. I'm actually just taking a cut plane. I'm sliding it down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, now I want to see all of the different wall types on the interior, by color, basically, right? So color by property, you can check the box, and it's just going to automatically color things based on a parameter. So I'm going to go to type mark. And what you'll see is it's actually coloring all of my types by a specific type mark. If I wanted to, I could filter out the walls themselves. You get the idea, but right away, boom, just like that. Every wall has been colored. You can modify the colors and so on and so forth. So instead of making a filter for every single condition, what you're doing there is just saying, okay, I want to take this whole parameter. I want to randomly color the model by those parameters. Freaking awesome. Anybody who's had to make 1,000, and look at this, the function. So if I flip this to wall functions, I can see core shaft, exterior, interior, and not assigned. So right away, I can start looking at wall functions, which, did you know, are always wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But they are wrong quite a bit. I get a lot of models where the naming convention is great. The layers are great for the walls, but for some reason, no one created or set the functions correctly. Exterior, interior, core shell, whatever your functions are. So pretty cool. That's the color by property. It's super powerful, super awesome, and one of those functions that anyone who's used Revit and had to use filters, etc., has had to deal with. I feel like Dynamo, yes, there to some extent Dynamo can help you with the multiple filters, but again, in one click, all right, you're getting to where you need to be, which is pretty fantastic. So what I'm doing here is I'm just categorizing my inventory and using that to do different things like selecting. So you could see just like that, I can categorize my inventory by the type mark, and then I can restructure my inventory. So if I wanted to drill into certain type 2, type 3, type 4, I can quickly filter and create an inventory the same way, which is really, really cool. There you go. So category and type mark. So now I'm filtering by category first, and then within that I'm filtering by type mark. And so you can see I can go to walls, and if I wanted to select all of the F2, F3, F4 types, you can see I'm just manually selecting them using that, and now you can see them over here. You'll actually notice on the top, even as I'm selecting it, there's 119 square feet of these walls. So boom, just like that, I can tell you exactly how many square feet of these walls there are, and also on the inventory there are. So you can see the power of being able to just slice, dice, condition, move, and do all kinds of really cool stuff with your models. Things that are just very, not that they're not possible in Revit. We all know they're possible in Revit, but some of these things are actually can be pretty painful to create and set up in Revit. Quickly just showing model compare. And I don't know if you guys, and I know there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so I'm not going to ask, but if you've ever used the model compare function in Navisworks, you know that it is relatively useless. That's what I'm showing here. It works. It's just, once you create the model compare, it's really difficult to understand it. And that was always my challenge. It's colored by specific setups, you know, quantity change, type change, the typical things, but understanding the values of those changes and how they compare is extremely challenging. It takes quite a bit to process. So what I wanted to do is just highlight really quickly how model comparing looks in Assemble, which I really enjoy and our estimators really enjoy as we're doing a lot of benchmark estimates, you know, CD, SD, DD, CD, and even progress in between. You can take one model to the next model and you can just compare where are the big changes, where's the quantity change, where's the type changing, where's the magnitude and the location of most of these changes, and then where are the variances. So super cool, and it's literally just a matter of clicking show changes when there's multiple versions there. Zaf just asked, we got a whole bunch of questions. Sorry, guys. Man, you guys are flying in there. Can Assemble Viewer be linked into Power BI? Great question. I will actually be showing that in about 5 minutes. Yes, it can be to some extent. Not the viewer, but the data. The view is getting there, but not fully there yet. Would you recommend this for preventative maintenance purposes? Zaf just asked. Not really sure what you mean by preventative maintenance purposes. Maybe elaborate on that a little bit. Sorry. What else do we have here? Creative Thing says, does Assemble square footage tabulation work as poorly as it does in Revit in terms of accounting for wall joints and such? It's this, yeah. I mean, it'll probably be the same areas as Revit. I haven't seen anything different as above. I'm not really sure what you mean by as poorly. I think the area takeoff is pretty good in Revit. I'm not really sure. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. Why you think it's not that great, but I'd love to hear that. Okay. So last but not least, before we jump into some more Q&A and some live demo of some more recent stuff, I did want to talk about, and this is where Brandon was kind of asking the question about Power BI. The other side of Assemble that really we found useful and we find useful today is it does have the ability to connect. There is a connector that exists with Power BI. So not only can you analyze the data within Assemble and that whole connection, what I was just talking about, but you can also analyze and view the data in Power BI, which is super useful for a lot of different things. I sort of became a data nerd back when I learned this, even to the point where I was tracking my son's sleep at the time and creating a Power BI sheet to show that his wake ups and cry time was going down while we were trying to get him to sleep back in 2019. But anyways, as far as what we're using it for and some of the values we see, on the estimating side, you can make a dashboard that gives you an overview of the quantities within your models, etc. Right. One of the things that we saw an opportunity in is if you're able to input data into this so simply by using properties and you have the models there, then why can't we use it for tracking work in place? And so first we had to decide, or figure out what people were currently using for tracking work in place, and this was it, a Sharpie, right? And this was basically what you see for tracking work in place in the field, highlighting stuff on a plan, saying, hey, this was installed on this day, etc. And so that, is obviously not that great. It gets the job done in theory. You can see when a building's done and you can go backwards, but you have no quantities, you have no information, you have nothing you can use after the fact. So just real quick to run through it. What we did is we said, okay, if Assemble is really easy to use, it has an iPad app, it has a web-based app, we can get pretty much anyone to use it. Let's get supers and field engineers to click these items, put a date installed, and then let's see what we can do with that data. And so that's what they're doing. So they're just simply clicking pieces of steel, for example, clicking date installed, clicking apply, and then boom, they've got themselves a model that has data and it knows what day it was installed. Not only that, but it can also be done in an iPad version. I didn't mention that, but there's an iPad version. Creative Things is elaborating on his material takeoff. So while this is playing the iPad version, let me just look. So you're saying that quantities, quantity because of wall joins and wraps. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that is so minute it doesn't even matter. I guess in certain conditions it can. The other thing to think about is that even in like a miter joint or something like that, no matter what, the quantity is going to be picked up on part A or part B. So, I mean, really. But I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, and it takes the errors from the model, so that is what it is. So once we did this tracking in place stuff, my group basically became Power BI geeks, and we've created dozens and dozens and dozens of dashboards to the point where we've got, I don't even know how many now, that are showing our work in place. And so Stratford High School, this is what you're seeing here, was sort of the first case study to see how it works. And we didn't know Power BI then, so it was just taking off the data. And then there was another project we did it on here where I learned Power BI, and we're looking at steel and we're looking at pieces per day, average weight per day, how many total pieces installed, how much percentage complete are we based on pieces left. And you can see we were able to take this data now and start expanding on it. This was actually the engineer on the job site who was creating an image similar to this. I kind of changed the font, but he used the color by properties on the top in Assemble to show date installed. So remember that highlighter sheet? This is sort of the new version of it. Now you can see, and then on the bottom was the webcam of the current progress. And so you can see he knows how many, how much percentage complete we are, because he knows how many pieces of steel there are, and he knows how many were installed. So, I mean, stupid simple math that can give you so much value and so much information. You can access room data as well, which is pretty sweet. Here we were doing interior room tracking, and one really neat thing is it brings in the room data and also creates a 3D object for them based on the offset. So what we're doing here is we're using that room data. You can visually see the room, but then you can also use that to input the data. Super cool. Again, something you can do in Dynamo if you want, right? You can take the room, extrude it, push it back into the model. But here, the rooms come in exactly how they are. And then just to show you a couple examples of what those dashboards look like, this is a drywall install tracking. This one is more drywall install tracking. And then there's a couple steel ones. This is actually just steel production tracking for a project. So looking at all kinds of data when it comes to steel. As I mentioned, Navisworks, you can bring up files. And so we're actually using it, using our coordinated models from our subcontractors and our contractors. And we're using those to track in-place MEP and dashboards for that. So you can see percentage complete by floor for Power BI. And the really cool thing is this is a dynamic connection, right? So what I mean by that is the dashboards, because there's a link, what you're seeing there, if the data is updated on the model, all we do is click refresh or have an automatic refresh on Power BI, and it's always the most up-to-date information, right? So it's a cloud-based place where we're hosting these models. We've got estimators doing takeoff. We've got cost engineers checking the magnitude of changes. And then we've got supers inputting installed data into the model. And then the Power BI dashboard is automatically pulling that data down all through the cloud. Super cool, super powerful. And guess what? Not a single one of them are Revit users. Not a single one, right? The only people that are Revit users are myself and my team, who are really just uploading the files and helping them connect everything. Dan Condon, those are nice dashboards. Those are nice dashboards, Dan. Dan, you can take credit, bud. Dan is part of my team, and he made most of those dashboards there. All right, let's see. I missed a couple chats there. Sorry, guys. JF said I mentioned something about assemble and GPU hardware functions. I don't know if I did, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess if I'm going to mention anything about GPU, I will just mention again that our estimating crew and our supers and our field team, they are able to view these models without BIM machines. So they're using Dell Precision, 5500s or whatever. So they don't have, they have a GPU. They probably just have an Intel GPU, and they're able to do it. So I don't know if that answers your question. Emil, what's up, man? Emil was asking about attaching warranty information and so on. So for looks like Dan answered that. So I'll let you guys read the chat for that one. Brandon mentioned. So I mentioned that the assemble viewer itself and linking to Power BI. So currently, you cannot access the actual 3D view and interpolate it and all that stuff in Power BI. What you were seeing from my dashboards and what my team created is those are images using a specific Power BI plugin that lets you do specific things. That they take a little effort. There is a connection now that shows thumbnails from your assemble save views, which is getting to the point where we could have these views dynamic as well. You still don't have the access to the 3D model spinning around. There's a couple people out there that are doing some things with that. Honestly, I don't think it's an assemble thing. I think it's a Power BI thing. I know, I think Nate Miller, Proving Grounds, has been working on some cool stuff with that. And so maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to come on and talk about some of the 3D stuff he's been doing in Power BI. But right now it's a stagnant image, but you have the ability to click different pieces of information and get the data from the image. Can you push the updated data from Assemble back into Revit? Yes, you can. So let me go back to my screen here. And I'll do some, let me jump out of this this guy here. Yeah, PowerPoint, you're great. Oh my goodness. You should see what I'm sure you guys are very, very familiar with PowerPoint, but the things it does graphically to your machine, it's just fucking doesn't make any sense. It's bizarre. Okay. So just real quickly, you guys are probably familiar with this project I've mentioned on a few. This is the addition that's being built currently in my backyard. But what you'll notice is that Assemble has up here, there's a publish, but there's also a sync. Okay, there's a sync. Another really neat thing that you could do, so sync actually brings the data down, and if you created a new parameter, it will create a project parameter called assemble colon whatever. But I will warn you that that it's not the cleanest reentry of data. But one of the neat things that you could do, which is kind of bizarre, is you could modify this data. So here's the inventory for this project, right? If I export this, to Excel, you'll notice that there's let me just make sure this thing is here. And this is just one of those things that's absolutely bizarre, but kind of cool. So there's model. What did I have in here? Thickness, depth. Of course, I didn't have anything I should type in. So let me just really quickly add. I'm gonna add a comments. So I'm gonna add comments to my inventory. So I'm basically just adding this to my schedule for all those Revit uses out there. I'm gonna export this to Excel, and then I'm gonna open it. And this is super bizarre. So once I export this Excel sheet, it's formatted just like my inventory. So imagine you're in Revit now, you create a schedule, you exported the schedule to Excel, right? And you'll see that there's all this information here. Well, if I go in here and I say, hey, bad live, right? So I'm just typing in my Excel sheet, I'm typing, hey, bad live, and I'm adding it to some of these elements in my Excel sheet here, right? Okay. So if I save this, and then I click over here and I say import from Excel. This is going to blow your minds, I'm telling you, because it blows my mind every time I do it. If I click that file and I click open and import, it's going to say, hey, by the way, the initial check said that you made some changes. Would you like to accept the changes? I say yes. Now, if I pull over to comments, oops, let me expand this a little. I'll hide the 3D view for now. Look at this here. Hopefully you can read it. The comments say, hey, bad live. So now those are attached to my analytical floors, which is what I select them to. So kind of bizarre. You have the ability to extract an Excel file, input data, and then pop it back in, and it populates the stuff. So super cool. And then in theory, if you played with the push back to Revit, then you could get that to work. But just one of those things I wanted to show you because you asked about pushing it into Revit. Pretty neat. Thank you for the explanation. These are super helpful, of course. Anytime. Looks like some people's minds are blown, which is awesome. Very cool. So what I thought I would do is just again, if you guys have any questions, but just to kind of wrap it up a little bit here. Hopefully this was helpful for everyone, just to see some of the cool crap you can do. Is I would just open it up and just show live instead of just pre-recorded videos some of the neat stuff that I already mentioned. So just looking at this project and sort of dig in a more click around and show some stuff. So first of all, you can see the view's kind of neat. The shaded view doesn't bring in some of the surface patterns, which isn't always that fun, but it does have kind of cool looks. Like the hidden line has this interesting ambient stuff. So anyone looking at the visual side, it's, whatever. But there's some really cool things that this can do that Revit isn't necessarily great at. And so, for example, let's say you want to quickly know an area of walls, right? Let's say, and you don't have a schedule set up in that model for whatever reason, and whatever, and you just want to know, hey, on the first floor, I want to know the square footage of these 3 walls. Well, if you were to click those walls in Revit, right? If I go into Revit, I say, hey, I want to know this wall, and this wall, and this wall, right? When you click more than one wall, what happens? The area goes blank, right? If I click one wall, it gives me the area, right? I know that that's 31 square feet, right? Well, if I go in here and I click these 3 walls, even if I'm just manually clicking them, right? It's selecting them over on my inventory. But look on the top here, 4 selected, 203 square feet. So just like that, it's combining units for us just by clicking. So even just to be able to quickly say, hey, I want to know how many square feet this thing is, boom, 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 there you go. You don't even need to make a schedule or an inventory to do it. You can just click and look, right? And so that alone is also really cool, right? That's just something unique that this program offers. If I added a section plane, you can see I can cut into these things using section planes, which is pretty cool. Dig in and look at different things there. And then the other neat part is sheets. right? So you can upload your sheets, and again, they act very much like, a Revit sheet would, right? If I was to select a piece, it would show somewhere hidden on here. Oh, I guess it didn't work on this one. Yeah, the sheet's still processing. Sorry about that. But normally, as you saw from the example, when you click it, it would show the sheet. But again, you're connecting all that data, which is super cool. Would it be the same for conduit lengths? Yes. anything that you want to see, the total length, total unit, whatever the unit is, that's how it works. It's not just valley and hip lengths. Sure. Let's see. Actually. So as I mentioned, there's different ways you can take off, and one of the ways is you could measure. And so something like a valley and hip length, I can use a distance measure, which is just point to point, right? And there we go. That's my length, 13 feet. Or I can also use an edge. There's just an edge measure, and you can see there 13 feet. So you can just go around and measure specific things in 3D, which is kind of nice. So again, as I mentioned, this is just giving people the ability to interact with models in ways that sometimes we even can't in Revit. But remember, these are also, length of ridge too. Let's do length of ridge too. Sure. There we go. Length of ridge, 50 feet. Right? So you have the ability to interact with the models in completely different ways. Super, super cool, super powerful. As you can see, not even just for Takeoff, right? I mean, just for access to BIM, for non-BIM people, right? I mean, that's huge. It's so valuable. CD Brady asked conduit lengths. I already answered that one. Yep. So conduit length. I mean, if you want, for people who are interested, I guess I can. I was trying not to open. Let me do this in the background. I was trying not to open any projects too much, just because. Trying to keep some names a secret, but what I'll do is I'll open an MEP file real quick so you can just see what an MEP file looks like. Any other questions, guys? This is pretty sweet. I'm just reading through. Can you use the import and export function for system families to create new types? No. This is not a model editor, right? A model data editor, but not a model editor. So what you're doing is importing data into models that exist, but you're not modifying them. So you can't take an object and duplicate it or create a new version of it, etc. So no. Hopefully that's... how can we use assemble for Kobe deliverable purposes? Interesting. I guess in theory, if... For Kobe, geez, this is like the second time Kobe came up in a completely out of context conversation, and every time it comes up, I just seize up a little bit. Anyone who's ever dealt with Kobe, it is what it is, and I understand why it is what it is, but having to deal with it can be a challenge. But I guess there's the interoperability tools within Revit and other programs that kind of help with that. But I guess where I could see this possibly coming into play is if the Kobe parameters existed in the model, I guess in theory you could make them too and assemble, but if they existed in the model, this could be a location where maybe someone who is not a Revit user but has been assigned to input Kobe data, in theory could do this, right? Otherwise, I don't really know what else it could be used for on Kobe side of things. But it could be a tool for non-users of software to input Kobe data, because let's be honest, that's the hardest and most challenging part about it. And then specifically to filter systems, yeah, I mean, if the Kobe data is in your model and it's set up the way the filter, the model is set up the way that you could filter it, then yeah, of course, then you could filter by whatever you want that's built into the models there. Brody is looking for a quick way to create family catalog. Maybe that's what you're talking about, Brody, but maybe, and yeah, I like where you're going with that. Ruben asked again how much it costs. I'm sorry, I really don't know how much it would cost for you. I as I mentioned, there's all different arrangements. It's Autodesk product now, so you have to reach out to them. I believe they have a project, a business, a region. There's all different levels. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't know what it'll cost for you guys. Let's see. Okay, so what I was doing in the background, I got a little distracted there while you guys were asking questions, is I was just going to open an MEP file really quickly. Hopefully we have a good one here. Tony asked, can the data be exported to Excel for access? You might have missed it. It maybe check out the replay in a little while, and you'll see I did a whole little demonstration of Excel going out. John Gray said $1 million. I don't think it's $1 million. I can tell you that for sure. It's not $1 million, but I don't know how they structure their licenses for different businesses. So real quickly, here's a quick takeoff view of ducts, and just to show you sort of the information that you can get for ducts. You could see duct fitting. Of course, I hit a fitting instead. Let me just hit a regular duct, and you can see there's linear feet, there's area, there's length, there's width, there's height. So you can do whatever you want, and all the parameters and all the system information, system name, exhaust air, system classification, etc. So actually, that's a really cool one too. Is coloring systems by what they are, or is really quick. So if I go in here and I do system name. Nope, system. Yeah, I guess. So I do system type, system name. Yeah, system type would work. Now you can see this is quickly colored by system type. So exhaust air, outside air, return air. So it makes looking at these things and analyzing these things extremely simple and extremely fast. So same applies to MEP as as architecture. Brandon Dorsey asks, is there an access granted process for importing data to prevent bad data? Just that little thing that you saw where it says, would you like to accept changes? And if you're hitting something that cannot change, it will let you know, right? And so you'll find those limitations. If you're really interested in destroying the import process, then you should probably use Dynamo and import the data that way to parameters. But yeah, I mean, there's some checks and balances in there, Brandon. Creative things just asked, will it do takeoffs on drafted elements? Like if someone has chosen a draft duct or instance? No, it only shows model elements in the inventory. You can measure in the sheet views and stuff like that, but if it's a detail item, actually, let me hold back on that for a second, because there is the ability to turn on specific detail items. If I go under my model tree and let me hide my face. If I go to visibility settings, what you'll notice is that detail items, furniture, parts, rooms, and spaces are automatically hidden by default, and you could turn those on and off. So let me real quickly go. I hit subscribe again. Sorry guys, you probably keep getting the ding in your face. My little control panel's in a different position today. While this is opening, I'll answer a couple other questions. How easy is it to use for quantifying graded rain screen panels? If depends on how they're built. If the rain screen panels are built as like a curtain wall, then super easy. If they're built like a surface pattern, then it's just going to be a wall, right? So it depends on how it's modeled. How easy is what parameters are required to quantify the panels? I think I just answered that. If they're panels that are individually modeled as, say, like a curtain wall, then they're there. The area is there. Everything's there that you need to pull from. Saeed asked, is it work with Revit parts? It does. There's a little quirky thing that happens with Revit parts, but it does work with Revit parts. So they're just off by default. You can turn them on after the upload. But we use parts all the time for our quantity, our production tracking, because, for example, they might not pour an entire 400-foot long foundation wall, but that may be modeled as one wall, and so we use parts to slice them and then upload them and use those pieces. What I wanted to show you guys real quickly is I'll open my home edition thing again, and what I'll do is quickly just show you I can turn on detail items, and let's do rooms and click update. I don't know what that is. What is that? Oh, that's a room. I've got some weird room out here for my model. Pretty cool. So then if I click this, you could see there's all my rooms in this project. right? And so they're brought in they're 3D. I can look at the square footage. I can look at all kinds of cool stuff. What I wanted to see is what kind of detail items came in. And so if I click this, you can see that the detail items are there, right? So you can see there's A302 bolts, right? So those are bolts that I put into my wall section. The problem is with detail items, what you're going to run into is what I'm running into right now, which is kind of a visibility issue, right? You can't. Some of them show and they show things. Some of them don't. So in theory, what I'm getting at is you can quantify specific detail items, but the whole visual connection is kind of tough. Your shirt, oh boy, that's truly something. This shirt, I can't take credit for this. This is Case Ink, old school. I got it at a conference from Dave Fano. And awesome shirt though. Buildings equal data. I love it. I still wear it today. Philip Dunn asks, does it have a comparison tool? Yes. Phil, check out somewhere in this live stream I showed the comparison tool. Are you using a loop deck controller? I'm gonna get it from hey, creative things. I'm using a Stream Deck controller if anyone's super interested in geeking out on that. Right now I'm just using a small Stream Deck controller and I'm using OBS to stream. All right. I think I got all the questions. Wow. Awesome. That was a lot more questions than I expected, so thank you guys. That's really cool. I hope this was helpful. I know it was kind of a mashup of like a formal presentation and demo and Q&A, but that's how this stream is. It's informal. It's fun. So the whole idea was to just show you some of the stuff that Assemble can do, show you how it can be of value to you regardless of what it is that you do, engineer, architect, CM, owner, you name it. I'm hoping that you at least took away some examples of how this program works, what it is, how you can possibly use it, some of the benefits, and what I've learned about it over the last 4 years of using it. So thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. If you're seeing this in the future, thank you for joining me in the future. And I'll see you guys next week. You're amazing. I've got a really, really cool one in line for next week. So you're going to want to check it out. I promise you. Definitely along the lines of Assemble, where it's a different program that you guys probably never heard of before, but awesome. I'll say there's a remote control and a drone involved. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Feel free to reach out. You can reach me on Twitter at the Revit Kid. Shoot me an email. Go over to therevitkid.com to see any other stuff that I posted. And if you're interested in seeing this episode and the last 40 episodes, head on over to live.bimafterdark.com. You can see them all. You guys are amazing. I love you. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you to BIMbox for sponsoring it. And with that, I'm going to roll the outro and see everyone later. Bye-bye.